finally got the thing out and finished spraying.
I know, I guess I have to bring my own.
Headache.
Yeah. No, we do vegetation management on Mill Yard, Ingram Yard, and Summit Golf Course. And APCO, all the stuff underneath the bridge. But I traded off. I said, we're not gonna do underneath the bridge. We're gonna spend that money getting that room up there in that berm between you and Roseburg. Because that's what my board does. So anyway, Bruce is good. Sure. He just lets us do whatever we want. He doesn't care. Yeah. He said, I'm just a guy that used to make bagels. The next thing I know, I'm running a multi-million-dollar corporation here. So.
Not quite.
No.
Working forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Till they sell it.
There you go. Thanks, elevator.
Great.
Yeah.
Haven't seen you in forever, Jim.
Okay.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
At the office.
Been somewhere.
Okay, it is 6, our chair is not here, but our vice chair is.
That's right.
Oh, shoot, yeah, that's me.
That's you, Patrick.
Okay, well, heck, excuse me. Well, I will call the meeting to order at 6 for the Coos Bay Planning Commission, May 14th, 2024. Let's see, call to order, remote or
We
roll
should
call?
do roll call, yes. All right, Vice Chair Terry,
Here.
Chair Stevens. No. Commissioner Aguirre,
Here.
Commissioner Berg,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Merrill,
Here.
and Commissioner Miller.
Here. All righty, well, next thing on the agenda, discussion on Coos Bay Development Code regarding fence standards.
And I'll, just quickly, I will introduce Kelly Eichelberger for those who do not know her. I'm sure many of you work with her. She's our planner too, and we intend to grow her into the planning administrator role and to take on more responsibility with planning commission. So she will be helping guide this discussion tonight. So I will turn it over to Kelly to help start that.
Well, I'm looking forward to working with all of you, kind of a different role, a little more in the public. But basically, we do have code standards regulating fences throughout the city. The code does require that all fences go through the general review process. There's other fences in other areas that require a type 2 land use review. We ran into some issues recently with enforcing the fence regulations and getting the necessary permits. We're currently going through our code audit, so we thought now would be a good time to have a discussion about our fence regulations to see how the commission feels and get some input from the public. So basically on attachment A of the staff report, I did summarize our fence regulations. So I thought maybe we could just go through kind of each item and have a discussion about it. I do believe we have members in the audience that are specifically here to discuss the fence regulations. So Pat, it would be your decision whether or not you want to provide or allow the public comment during the discussion or wait until the public comment time period.
I think that we should wait until the public comment time period, just so we can, which is next. So why don't we just go ahead and go through your presentation of the summary of the standards.
Okay, so one of the bigger issues that we have run into is the prohibition of chain link fences in certain areas. Specifically on Bayshore Drive between Elrod Avenue and Highland Avenue, Bayshore Drive north of Fur, South Empire Boulevard south of Newmark, 6th Avenue south of F Street over in East Side, and then all areas located in the downtown Coos Bay and Empire urban renewal areas in commercial land use districts. I do have our GIS map that I want to try to share with you guys here that shows where some of these, or where the fence regulations are. So chain link, the prohibited chain link is shown in green. I'm not sure how well I'm gonna be able to zoom in on this. So if we look in the downtown area,
Oh, there we go. Oh,
nope. It's being kind of finicky. It's taking its sweet little time.
I think they're grandfathered in.
So the green is
Unless
areas
they make
prohibited?
I think is how.
The chain link is prohibited. I'm just now kind of getting back to the downtown area that shows that. It's taken a second here.
So the obvious chain link fences we have downtown around the car lots and whatnot are prohibited?
There are several that are existing that aren't meeting the code requirements. And so one of the issues we are running into now is enforcing the,
Are they grandfathered in though, where,
well, and so that's just in the commercial zoning districts. Industrial, commercial does allow chain link.
Okay, but in the commercial area,
Commercial.
car lots,
yeah, like tower
lots of
home?
chain
Yeah, if
links.
it, yep, if it's in the commercial zone,
Put in because they had problems, they had to have a fence.
sure.
So what's the option for them?
So if they were in the urban renewal, in a commercial zone district, they have an existing chain link fence, and for whatever reason that goes away and they want to put a new fence up, currently, they would not be allowed to put chain link up again. It would be wood or wrought iron,
What about repairs?
repairs, yes, they can make repairs.
Okay.
Yes. And so currently, with the different fencing, we know some of those are very costly. An option is to pursue urban renewal funding help for that. Having said that, we know that for many reasons, chain link currently is maybe a preferred material.
So, I had a question. When did all this come about?
It was over a table,
It's been a while.
like a
We
year
can-
ago or so.
So was it ever, I never remember hearing this before this board.
I do. I
So-
remember hearing it.
The regulations have been in effect since at least the last code.
2021 was the
Yeah.
last update.
Really?
I do.
So the current fences that are there probably predate that.
Yeah,
they do.
but that's why I was asking if it's just a repair, they don't have to put in all new fencing if they're just doing a repair, right?
Right, they can repair the existing chain.
Of course, they could slip those plastic things that are so attractive
Well-
into the fence to make it, yeah, and okay.
And so I guess a question we would have, is that still kind of the desire of the commission to prohibit chain link in these areas, or?
Well,
I think I'm going to reserve my comments on that till after I hear
Same.
what the public has to say about it. This surprises me that, I mean, if you talk about South Empire Boulevard, south of Newmark, what, to the city line? That's all the way to the, I mean, that's, and is it just on Newmark? What if you had a residence that was 2 blocks off Newmark, that was north, or that was south of Newmark?
Right, then the regulation would not apply.
I guess,
So this is just only on the main corridors?
Yeah, and if, I believe the intent was around like aesthetic beautification and the idea that chain link is not aesthetically appealing. I think that was the intent,
well,
on the corridors.
as attractive as a car lot
Attractive.
is, if you put a chain link fence around it, I'm not, I'm no artist, but I can't, I mean, to me, and of course, and I have no dog in this fight, it's just that I know that those chain link fences were put up around, most people, I'm thinking of, the car lots along there.
It's for security.
And it's for security, because they had people going in there and messing around with the cars.
Going around the ball field.
And so they didn't want to, nobody wants to spend all the money to put a fence up. And they'd rather have people after they've gone to the movies and had dinner to walk around and pick out their car. So it's not, I guess, I'm having trouble with the city's concern about that when it is in fact a security measure that they're trying to take at no small cost, because a chain link fence is not cheap either. And would it look that much better to have a wooden fence around them? I don't think so. So, anyway, well, that's my thoughts.
And Rex, I did pull up the Empire area. So that green is where the chain link is prohibited in the Empire District.
Okay, the darker green.
That includes the Y.
It's like Y Marina.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks from, I don't know where your place is, but.
Yeah.
Oh, he said Howard Place,
Oh,
yeah.
Howard Place.
Probably includes most of the places in Needham.
Yeah,
What?
Is there,
that's exactly right.
I guess that's the point.
is the prohibition absolute, or can the owner apply for variance or some other?
You can do a land too.
No,
Well-
it's
That-
absolute.
Yeah, it's absolute. So the type 2 review you have to get for any type of fence in those areas. But a type 2 still would not allow a chain link in a prohibited area.
As it stands now.
Correct.
I mean, because like Jim was saying, I know for a fact that Tower Ford did not want to put that fence there, but they had people coming in and keying cars and stuff like that. So it's like, well, what are your options? Obviously the ones along Newmark haven't done so yet, but should they start experiencing problems, what's their recourse? Lasers?
Right, and I think with that urban renewal funding, the idea was, well, the city can help offset the cost of something like a wrought iron fence, but we know those are substantially more expensive than a chain link fence. And is there a room for compromise? Is something like a black chain link fence maybe more attractive than a gray? I don't know, right? So those are the questions we're asking, or do we care at all? Do we just understand that current climate atmosphere is people's security is really more important at this time?
I remember when it came across the table the last time, I thought it was the waterfront, like the Heritage District that it was focusing on. I didn't realize it was all the way through Empire.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
pretty broad stroke.
And does it apply to just permanent fencing, not temporary fencing?
Correct.
Anybody else, or can I keep going?
Okay, so I mentioned before that commercial fences and those above areas require the type 2 land use review, which does require that public notice. So the question there would be, is it really necessary to do a type 2 land use review for the fences? And it's specific to commercial fences, so do we care about the fences serving a commercial use or all fences generally in a commercial zone?
Now, say that again?
So,
Sorry, I'm slow.
the areas we noted above require that type 2 land use review. Does the commission think that a type 2 should be required for fences in those areas, or could it fall under a general review like the other fences?
What's the type 2?
So the type 2 requires public notice to properties within that 150-foot radius to provide their comment.
And that extends the timeline.
It just, extends the timeline.
And what's the cost for a type 2?
Oh, I think these are I want to say they're $350 plus the mailing fee and,
Yeah.
I
It-
believe.
More than a general review,
Yeah,
more
I think
than,
in your general review, you're looking at like $75.
Okay. Okay.
And then the discrepancy comes up if it's a commercial use or just in the commercial zoning district.
How is that different?
Because in the commercial zoning district, you can have other uses. There's like existing single-family dwellings, or there's a mixed use. Well, mixed use is considered commercial,
commercial.
but they're not all commercial uses in the commercial zoning districts.
So if we care to regulate the look of a fence, is it in the overall commercial zone? Or is it only where commercial uses are? Or is it something else? So that's, I guess, the question.
I mean,
Well, I just have to say something. I guess my thought is that fences in general are kind of unattractive. You know, it looks, as you will drive down, you see the fences, it appears like, well, what's wrong? Why are they having this? You know? And on the other hand, if you are having problems and you're trying to protect your stuff, kind of important to have them. So, and how do you make them pretty? Well, I don't know that you do. In my sense, anyway. So, I'm not sure that by messing around with the fencing, we're really solving a problem for the city. You know, the aesthetics or anything else. If you have these people paint them black or put those silly things down in them or whatever else, still a fence. And, you know, if people need fences, maybe they just need fences. And, you know, I'm not sure the wisdom in coming up with the areas that they're allowed, not allowed, that you're describing to us today, but I'm not sure that it is going to, well, I'm not sure the answer is just in which code they have to file for or not, that it's still, maybe we need to figure out why there's a reason that they have to have a fence.
is
Rather
this
than
commissioner
fence.
comment time, or?
You can allow comment if you want the public to comment and weigh
I
in
kind of
now.
do want to hear the public.
Yeah, and we have two signed up to talk specifically about fences, so
Okay.
I will give that information to you.
Well, thank you. Well, why don't we go through Ms. Eichelberger's?
Oh, is it not
Burnett-
on?
It's Eichelberger now,
Sorry.
yes.
Sorry, Kelly.
No,
Why don't we
you're fine.
finish Kelly's spiel first, and then, just so we can get all the information from her.
Okay, because there are other districts where screening of fences is required, so it gets a little more in-depth there. But the next two items I noted aren't really under our purview in Title 17 for planning and land use. It's under the health and safety regulations of the municipal code regarding barbed wire fence and electric fence prohibitions. So I just kind of wanted to make note of those because those are restricted in some areas. The next item I have here is the height restriction on fences. There is a 4-foot, and maybe this is what you were thinking of, restriction on the bay side of Bayshore Drive, north of Elrod, excepting the portion between Highland Avenue and Fur, South Empire Boulevard south of Newmark, and then 6th Avenue south of the 6th Avenue Bridge. Otherwise, there's a maximum height of 8 feet in residential zoning districts, as long as it's not in any vision clearance area. So when we're looking at that, we haven't heard any real complaints about the height restrictions. And in the residential zone, that's a pretty lenient or gracious height of 8 feet. And the 4-foot height restriction on the bay aims to preserve the view of the bay. We'll go down into the miscellaneous fence standards. So the industrial commercial zone district gets a little more complicated. All fences in the IC zoning district must be screened with dense, sight obscuring plant materials. Security fencing must be a combination of solid wall, wrought iron, dense hedges, or similar treatment. And long fences and walls 50+ feet must be broken up by trees or hedges for every 5 feet every 50 feet. And also, storage areas must be screened from adjacent properties and the right-of-way. Storage areas, adjacent residential zones, or in areas with elevation difference must use a fence placed on top of a berm. We're specifically having trouble with the industrial commercial fence regulations. Really right now, kind of on the Teakwood Plaza development, they would qualify under this IC and the screening and so forth. And then a couple other just zoning districts. We have the waterfront heritage. That just requires that fences and walls must be at a pedestrian scale, so breaking up the wall surfaces and heights. And then in manufactured home parks, there's a required minimum 6-foot high fence around the park, except for at the entrance. So that's just kind of a summary of the things that we have, and then attachment B has all the code text.
Hear from the public?
Sorry, I'm just,
No, it's okay.
yeah, why don't we hear from the public? Thank you, Ms. Former.
So sorry.
So, looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people signed up for public comment. Why don't we go ahead and do that now? The first person, let's see. First of all, public comment is signed up. What's the time limit on public comment, or is there one?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. Thank you, 3 minutes. So, Paul Mecca?
Can I pass to Andy first?
Yeah, sure.
You don't all have to speak if you don't want to. I don't know if I can hand you guys this.
Sure.
Pass it around. It is an example of a chain link fence. That's a full estimate.
Yeah.
If you guys ever get.
Andy, if you'll come over here so the people, anybody listening can hear you.
So one of those is, it says chain link estimate across the top, or chain link example. That's a standard chain link fence. The second one is the ornamental fence that's comparable to it. Same dimensions, same footage, and just a standard installation. So I just brought those to show an example of the price differences between the two. I understand aesthetics are a huge thing. Black chain link was mentioned. The thing about black chain link is it's dipped in vinyl, and it's a much lighter gauge wire inside that vinyl than a standard chain link. So it doesn't have the security that a galvanized chain link has, and it definitely doesn't have the lifespan. There's areas in town that land in that urban renewal district, and I want to use Habitat for Humanity, the Restore downtown on 4th Street, as an example. They were prohibited to put chain link fence behind their building. They were required wood fence or ornamental fence. They still have no fence. They spend every morning cleaning up dirty syringes and human feces, and it's a regular occurrence. There's several businesses we talk to that we've tried to help take care of their security needs, but they can't afford ornamental fence, and wood fence really isn't a security fence. Car lots were mentioned. Wood fence doesn't work at a car lot. You can't see the vehicles. The whole purpose of a chain link fence at a car lot is you can see through the fence. When you drive by, you can see those nice shiny cars. As far as the vinyl slats, in general, you don't see vinyl slats inserted in a fence for a security fence because it hides people inside. So if somebody does get in, you're not going to be able to see them in there. The barbed wire situation is somewhat understandable. There are ways to turn barbed wire inward instead of outward. So even along a walkway, unless somebody is climbing that fence, they're not going to be affected by barbed wire. I think that's all I've got. I think Paul is going to follow me up. I can answer questions, though, if anybody has any questions.
So, Andy, on these two quotes, this is the same piece of property, one's
Correct.
9,000, the other is 58,000?
Correct, and that is a standard, and that's a steel ornamental, so it's much less expensive than an aluminum ornamental. which I say ornamental, but it's basically the wrought iron look. And that is a standard, basic, low-grade commercial fence.
And you guys are from West Coast Fencing?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Are you guys the only fencing guy in town?
There's a couple of other guys we invited to come with us, but they were unfortunately unable to. There's a couple of smaller, kind of father-son, out of their pickup guys.
Sure.
The planning and permits department knows us pretty well, I think, at this point. We do all the permitting, which that's not an issue. We follow the rules. We do everything we can to follow the city's code. Unfortunately, we turn down a lot of business. We have been seeing more out-of-town fence companies doing work in town, and I know that they are not always pulling the proper permits, so things are getting built out of permit. I can use Star of Hope as an example for that one. That was Roseburg Fence, I believe, came in from out of town to build that, and that was a couple of weeks ago. Star of Hope didn't get the proper permits. It's still sitting down there with just posts sticking up out of the ground. We do follow the rules, and we will continue to follow the rules with whatever the city decides we can do and can't do. I do want to put it out there, though, for the businesses in town, because they are hurting from it. Not everybody can afford a $50,000 fence. Those two examples are actually the lot where the old Coos Bay Fire Department was.
It's not even a big lot.
Yeah,
So the Habitat Restore, that, they didn't want a fence necessarily in front, or was it?
they didn't need a fence in the front. They have no on-street parking. Everything is behind their lot, or
Right.
behind their building. So their employees coming and going in the morning. They get there, there's people sleeping outside the building, there's
Yeah,
messes to clean up.
And
When they
that's-
leave at night, they have to go out in pairs because they're afraid that there's gonna be somebody sleeping outside the back door.
But that was the alley side. That they put the
Correct.
fence on.
Correct. So that store in particular, which is a good example of this, is the front of their store is outside of the urban renewal. The back side of their store is inside the urban renewal district, I believe. Is that correct?
I'd have to look.
I think it ends right at that sidewalk, the urban renewal district.
Do you know the address of?
It's 4th Street, I believe.
It's
Second
Is it 2nd Street?
776.
I'm right next door.
You're right next door.
He knows.
Oh, yeah. For the urban renewal.
Okay,
goes
so
all
it
the way to
lands on the
Fall Street.
opposite sidewalk.
Urban renewal doesn't cover 100% of the cost, though, right?
So it covers it. Yeah, chain link is prohibited in both the alley side and the front.
Well, what do you guys want us to do? What are we trying to do here?
We're just having a discussion about our fence regulations.
Does
Would
anybody
like
have
some
any other-
guidance.
Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Smith?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mecca, do you want to speak?
I'd love to. Hi, guys. Thanks for having us.
Just
Thanks
the
for,
record, your name's Paul Mecca, and I'm assuming you're also with West Coast.
I am with West Coast Fencing. I'm Paul Mecca. I've been there 6 years now. Been trying to help our community secure their property, secure their items, secure their people for a while now, and run into this urban renewal district issue quite often, specifically with businesses and commercial districts or commercial areas. Gone through and worked with a couple different property owners. Hey, can I have chain link here? I'm sorry, you're inside the urban renewal district, can't have chain link. Well, what's my next option? Right there in front of you, ornamental fence. It's the only thing that's secure enough to properly secure a property. We've lost business due to it's 6 times more expensive. We've gone, oh, what's this option? What can we do here? What can we do there? And we're always bouncing ideas and asking Derek what we can and can't do. and run into where the customer's like, well, if I can't have chain link, I can't afford the ornamental, we're not gonna do anything. So they're losing property. I have business owners calling, hey, car got broken into, materials got stolen off job site, wheels and tires off of cars, fuel tanks, catalytic converters. I understand where the city's coming from on the beautification. You gotta understand where the business owners and property owners are coming from with their property and trying to secure it. I think there's a bigger issue than just the fencing. So we're here to just try and make it smoother. It's very confusing when it comes to trying to figure out what a certain property can have, cannot have. Well, they have fencing, they have chain link, well, they're grandfathered in. Well, I can't have what they have, so we can't afford this, so we don't do anything. I'd like to see a little bit of a change. Andy and somebody up here suggested black chain link fencing. You can get heavier black chain link fencing, but those issues still apply. People can cut through chain link fencing. It happens often. We do repairs often. You can get the heavier stuff. It's harder to cut through. Again, you're going to be more expensive. Is it as visually appealing as an ornamental fence? No, but it's keeping businesses secure. It's keeping people safe. And I'm trying to form my thoughts here. Sir?
Can I ask you, have you had people ask you to build fencing for their dogs?
Yes, sir.
And that's what they wanted?
It-
Residential, to keep their dogs in?
Yes, sir.
Have you had fences blown down by the wind?
Yes.
They wanted chain link?
All right, let's cease this line of questioning here. You'll have a chance to speak, Mr. whoever you are. Okay. So, Mr. Mecca, between those two estimates that Mr. Smith produced, I believe one was like $8,000, the other was $58,000.
Yes, sir.
There's no middle ground at all under there for that would do for security?
Our options are fairly limited. Chain link, wood, ornamental, vinyl.
Right.
Wood's not secure. I can go through a wood fence pretty quickly, just quick, swift kick, breaks a board, you're in.
Okay, the other question that I had was, when these people, various businesses are asking you for a chain link fence and you have to decline based on where they're located, and maybe you don't have this information, but for example, Mr. Smith used the alley behind the Habitat place.
Yes, sir.
I doubt that too many tourists are coming through that alley.
Correct.
How many people have you said you can't do that fence? They're like literally along 101 or on the front of Newmark, or places where the thoroughfares that a tourist or somebody not from around here would go.
Quite a few. Porter's RV, Highway 101 Motorsports, Habitat. It's pretty regular that we're getting calls from businesses that they want to secure their property and can't because they can't afford the ornamental fence. A vinyl fence is literally just plastic and it clicks together like Legos.
Sure, sure.
And that's even more expensive than wood. That's 3 times as expensive as wood and not secure. There's an option of something called Wireworks, which is a welded wire fence. That stuff doesn't like to run on uneven ground, and it's equally as expensive as the ornamental fencing.
With an upgrade from a chain link to a vinyl coated heavy gauge fence from your base here, what would be the increase in cost roughly?
About 20% to go to a black heavy gauge chain link fence.
So the chain link fences, from an aesthetic viewpoint, are not very attractive, but
toss a black paint on it, it just almost makes it invisible. So it's an additional cost, but certainly it secures the property, but it kind of disappears into what you're looking at.
Correct.
You can still see through it.
Yeah, the black chain link is powder coated steel hardware, so it's not painted. That stuff lasts a real long time when it's powder coated. It's powder coated over galvanized steel. And then the vinyl that goes over the actual wire product is about a 4 or 5 mil thick vinyl, over galvanized. We live on the coast. Everything here rusts. It doesn't matter if it's stainless steel, it doesn't matter how much it's galvanized, give it time, it will rust. For example, Shore Acres, Simpson Reef, you go out there, there's black coated chain link. All that chain link's gone from the inside of that. So it's just the vinyl that's left. Not very secure after X number of years.
Anything else for Mr. Mecca?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Have you ever pursued, this may sound, brings out the farmer in me, but have you ever considered like cow panels? As in, I've seen some decks done very nice that way with cattle panels, especially like the horse panels with a 4-inch stay.
Yep.
And they're galvanized. And would it be possible to still set your post 8 foot on center
and give them a ladder to climb over?
Well, that's true. Well, that's where you need electric fence. That's what we do on the farm.
That's why I asked the questions, Mr. Miller.
It would, I don't know, it's just a thought.
Yeah.
that I had. I've seen some done fairly nicely.
We've done quite a few fairly nice ones that way. We sure have.
So
Works good
is
to keep
that-
deer out.
Is that within the realm of the code?
Doesn't pose the security though.
I think Mr. Mecca just stated that that's not gonna offer the security that the businesses are
Well-
looking for.
Well, I don't know, they're 5 foot. It would take then maybe you do something on top of that.
Barbed wire is prohibited.
Well, in Mexico, they always put the bottles on top and
I have a question.
I don't know, it's just a thought.
So we're always talking about, really the aesthetics is the thing here we're talking about. We don't, and so we're concerned about the visual appeal of a fence in certain districts. But the districts, in other words, it may be that there's a fence that's visible from the front, that's not from the back, or that is, so is there a way to plan this kind of thing so that you have a fence that, if your fence is along a busy thoroughfare and people are gonna see it, they're gonna be, maybe they're looking at this black fence, which, but in the back along the alley where your neighbors are gonna come in and steal your stuff, maybe it doesn't matter if it's not black, if it's, so is there a way to, but the codes only speak to a whole area, so you can't differentiate if it's the front yard or the backyard, or if indeed the property itself, even though it's in that zone, isn't on any kind of a thoroughfare where it matters.
You certainly could. You could make it very clear in the code that it's only applicable where it's visible from.
So, yeah,
And-
and I mean, so maybe something like that becomes more of a compromise solution to this, because I can certainly sympathize with somebody not wanting to spend $50,000 if they can spend $6,000 or $8,000. But it may be that the application where it isn't even significant, and so maybe that's a way to look at this, just a thought.
Are we allowed to change these zones? Because I understand it in like the waterfront heritage district where you're trying to beautify the waterfront. But like in areas like Empire where people's property are being stolen, I feel like just people's property rights should be protected and let them protect their stuff.
I mean, you could certainly change the zone, but I don't know that that's the best way to go about it, and that's a much more difficult process. You have to prove out to the state that you have enough commercial land versus industrial land
Gotcha.
versus residential. So you could write the code differently to, if we only care about 101 or Front Street, kind of make it very clear that those are the areas, and in Empire, be more lenient.
But also like industrial, commercial areas where people have $100,000 pieces of equipment.
Right.
That are being taken from their property. I think they should be able to fence that off, no problem.
It's kind of only shining the toes of your shoes, if you will.
Yeah.
Before we go, is there anything else from Mr. Mecca?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, guys.
I can't read this next name.
Dean Lundy.
Dean Lundy, thank you. No, wow. Don't be so, I appreciate the
I'm
help.
like leaning over your shoulder.
Dean Lundy, Empire, member of the Empire Coalition. Before I talk about what I'd like to talk about, I'd like to thank you guys for bringing up. I'm glad I showed up. Of course, I show up. I have some vinyl fencing that I bought when I bought the Coos Bay Boat Building Center, and it's really good fencing. I couldn't afford to extend it. I'm a fan of chain link fence. If someone's in your yard, you want to see them. If you want to look through it, you can look through it at the Mother Nature. It doesn't bother me at all. A good chain link fence done by a professional is really makes your property worth something. I'm looking at a piece of property, and the first thing I'm thinking, can I afford to fence it? That was my first thing, and now I'm thinking, oh, I'm not going to be allowed to fence it. If I were you guys, I'm going to ask you guys to table this. I don't think the city should be involved in this blanket requirement. I think it should be handled one thing at a time. Make them do whatever the second stage, and put out the information to all the property owners around it, 150 feet around it, and say, you know, is this ugly and stuff? Because the wind in this area is ferocious. It'll take down a wood fence. I mean, it'll break it off. The slats, anything that you put solid, you can't see through. And the chain link holds up really well. It keeps animals in, the wind goes right through it, and so if somebody gets into your yard, if you own equipment, if you have owned equipment, and then realize that somebody's been in it and nobody's seen them for a week, you'll go back to the chain link fence. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. The reason I came is my thing, and Mr. Powder here and I have both been working on this, is for pedestrian safety and bicycle safety. I own a piece of land on the 101, Tremont, North Bayshore Boulevard, and 101, all three. I own the old Union Oil dock down there, and I'm hoping to make it a youth program, like an aquatic park for kids off of that pier. I visited the new approved Planet Fitness at the risk of my life, crossing 101. It's too fast. There's no crosswalks from Newmark all the way to whatever it is, Hemlock. So there's no way to cross. There isn't even any white lines to cross 101 to the ocean side. I happen to be self-appointed. I'm a mayor of a small town. It's Cushman. It's well, right now it's only 3 people and a few dogs. It's the smallest town in Oregon, probably, and it's divided by a railroad trestle that belongs to the Coos Bay Rail. Right now, they just had a head-on fatality collision in front of the town. The whole road is blocked down. It's right in front of my town. We've lost dogs. We've had motorcycles. They pass. The reason that I bring this up is I've been told that like the Carneys left on Monday at Left Town, but ODOT is coming in tomorrow at the Sawdust, the Sawmill Casino, and they're having a work session from 1 to 4, I think. I'm not very knowledgeable. But I would like someone from the city to represent on the ODOT for the bike paths and the painting over the things and trying to, I don't know. But anyway, if somebody from the city planning and all these new things that have been approved, the Indian Casino, they've got parking for motorcycles, no bike rack. They'll impound you.
All right, Mr. Lundin, just kind of wrap it up. We're here talking about fences, not in 3 minutes, okay?
Yeah, well, I'm glad I showed up on that. Anyway, I'm for cyclone fence, and I don't think the city should get involved. I think the city should table it. Because you've looked at 75% of the public, we like cyclone fence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lundin.
Mike.
Mr. Mike.
Patel.
I don't have too much to say about fences.
Could you please state your name since I
Oh,
couldn't?
yeah. Mike Powder, and I live up in Empire. I don't have too much to say about fences, but I do know that cyclone, to me, it doesn't make that much difference. I drive around, I look at places, I don't see that. I see the bums on the street, I see the garbage, I see the lack of sidewalks, I see the lack of bike lanes. That's what I see. I don't really look at fences at all. It's just everything around it. And usually a lot of time when I do see a fence, behind that fence, if it is a chain link, it usually looks pretty neat behind it, neat and tidy and whatever. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. But I do come to a lot of these meetings just to express my desire to try to push forward to improve bike safety in the area. And anything to do with anything new going in, planning going in, bikes seem to be forgotten. We get all these new developments going in. There's no bike racks. There's no safe way to get there on a bike or anything else. You have to go by car. And these parking lots are getting fuller and fuller, and more cars are coming to the area. So that's pretty much what I want to get across. Give everybody a constant reminder that we should be looking at transportation for everybody. People of all ages and abilities should be able to get around the city, cross roads, and do all this sort of stuff. And I think it's a priority to work on it, and that's what I'm at. And there is that ODOT workshop tomorrow at the Mill Casino, which I'm going to. So learn more. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that is the end of the public comment. So, what are we doing next here? As far as recommendations or?
Yeah, I think so we are, as Kelly mentioned, working on that code audit, trying to get the code updated. And we, in doing that, would like to hear from Planning Commission. How would you like to see changes with respect to our fence regulations?
Very well. Start with Mr. Berg.
Well, I guess I think that there's some room for adjustment in this. I think that there can be, more site-specific. And these zonings we have are a whole area, but there's a lot of different nooks and crannies there. I mean, if probably going to be at the end of a dead-end street, and nobody would ever see which kind of fence to have, or be able to enjoy the beauty of a black chain link fence as opposed to a regular chain link fence. So I guess my suggestion is that somebody take a closer look at how these things are applied, and then see if we can come up with something that makes a little more sense financially for the people that are needing to put a fence up.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Mr. Marino?
So the security issue is a big deal. It's clearly a Tower Ford thing. You've got the motorcycle shops, masked brothers. I don't mind the security. I don't like everybody putting up a galvanized fence. Black, heavy black fencing with a vinyl coat is a compromise as far as I'm concerned. That's the direction I'd like to go, and permit the security. Allow people to put the fencing in. And if you want to adjust it for something that's happening on the backside of the alley, galvanized is fine back there. Just not up front.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So aesthetics, it's important.
Mr. Miller?
Well, first the story. Teakwood Plaza. There is a old cyclone fence, and I have to laugh about cyclone because chain link and cyclone are synonymous, but that was the heavy duty stuff way back when. Anyway, put in to keep people out of the gas tanks down there along 101. And so in doing the landscaping, I said, that looks really bad, but we could straighten the post, and it's all beat up because it's been hit time and time again. And I simply wanted to replace what was there. Now, it's already there, but it looks crummy. I simply wanted to replace it with some green vinyl fence. Like I say, it's already there, so it's the first thing you see, entering Coos Bay sign, and then you see a wall, and then boom, you got Teakwood Plaza, okay? Now you have to look through this crummy old fence. And my suggestion was to just simply leave the posts and the wall, of course, and replace the fabric on it and make it look better. Second part of Teakwood Plaza is there's a real problem with transients in that area. They hang out behind the sign and they camp up there, and it was a problem, has been a problem forever, and now it's just as bad. But there was a chain link fence. West Coast put in a nice chain link fence to keep them out of that. But then it was said, well, you can't do that, you've got it covered. So a wooden fence was put in place of that, put in front of it. Now you have to have a person go every day and go look before they go home, look behind that to see if the bums are back there or not before they can go home, because there's no way of visually seeing it. Before you could just, boom, you could just see the thing. So anyway, that's just the story about Teakwood, and I didn't really realize that there was such a problem with chain link fence until this came across my radar, and I said, you know, we can make it look better, and we should make it look better. Anyway, that's my story. Now, as far as the ornamental fences go, I've got an ornamental fence around my place. And it sits on top of a wall, and it's got daggers on the top of it, which I'm hoping somebody will get caught on if they try to go over it, and they still go over the thing. But the problem I have with the ornamental fencing is it's really tough to keep paint on them. If you nick a powder coat, it's gonna rust. So, and I painted that. I've used the best car paint I could find to paint my fence. And this has been in for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and now it's starting to see little rust spots on it. So I'll have to also go over it again. But I agree with Jeff and Jim that the security is really important, and it's important that you can protect things. If you can make it nicer, and you can do so on our main thoroughfares, well, maybe that's a good option. But to tell somebody they can't put up a chain link fence around their property I think is just really wrong. And lastly, it's the only thing, Tower Ford is a good example. If you turn there on I don't know where, I guess it's Elrod, it's built out too far. It's always been built out too far. It's always been a vision problem. But you imagine if that was a wooden fence, you wouldn't see anything. So, and they've been really good about keeping the foliage cut up, but you can see, at least you can get a glimpse of what's coming before you pull out there if you don't want to wait for the light. So yeah, my issue is security, and I agree, if we can make it nicer, and there's a place for ornamental fence, but if you can't afford it, I don't know that you should be told that you can't use chain link.
Thanks, Mr. Miller. Now, my turn, and I will agree with Mr. Miller and Mr. Berg that I believe that the security of our businesses and their property is paramount to aesthetics. I will say, though, that if there, especially the example that